Number 1. Vampire. Halloween is a strange holiday, I guess. I really like it. But I don't do a lot of things that other people do on Halloween. I stopped trick-or-treating when I was really young. I do not ever dress up, and I don't ever go to Halloween parties. Most of the time, I just hang out alone and read about vampires. Now, please don't lose interest in my story because of the vampire thing. I know that recently, goth people have been accusing people with vampire identity as ripping them off, but I know for a fact this is not true. The vampire fad has been going on for decades, mostly since the publication of Interview with a Vampire. I know I am not a vampire. I know that vampires do not really exist, but they do have a really interesting vibe for them. So while I was in high school, I started acting and pretending I was a vampire. It was fun to an extent. I used old vampire lore to justify why I was able to be out in the light. Older vampire stories did not have them killed in the light. They just became weaker. That was why I told my friends that I couldn't use my powers during the day at school when they saw me. I always tried to get into the bars when I was a teenager. I thought if I went in with a crowd, I could sneak past the ID checkers. Sometimes it worked, and on Halloween when I was 17, I was hoping it would work. It didn't, though, and I had to leave the bar. I honestly thought Halloween would be the day where it was so busy that I would be able to slip in. A guy who was in line saw me walking out of the bar. He must have noticed how upset I was, because he got out of line and came to talk to me. I was wearing all black, I had my hair slicked back, and I was pale as I could be. I think anyone who saw me probably thought that I was dressed as a vampire. The guy talked to me and offered to get some beers from a convenience store, and maybe we could go into the graveyard and have a talk. I was a bit scared at first, wondering why he wanted to hang with me. I think he noticed, though, and told me that he used to try to get into the bars when he was younger, and he knows it sucked when he couldn't, and he didn't want to see a vampire not have a fun Halloween. So we got some beers. There was a nearby graveyard that we walked to. There was a fence, but anyone could step over it. We went into the graveyard, found a good place to sit down, and we just drank some beer and we talked for a bit. He began telling me a lot about New Orleans. You know, the place any vampire would want to go. And his stories were similar to the ones I would tell people about being a vampire. So I sort of insinuated that he might be a vampire like me. "Oh, I like vampires," he told me. "As far as being one." He paused. "As far as being one, I can't really say that I am. I guess all that depends on what you define as a vampire." His stories interested me quite a bit. After I'd had about 3 beers, I was feeling very woozy. Yeah, I was a 17-year-old lightweight. I got up at one point to grab another beer. I was woozy and I fell, and I guess my head hit a tombstone and knocked me out. If you've never been knocked out, it is a very weird experience. You know everything is dark, but you also do not know what is going on. It's weird. But it wasn't nearly as weird as what happened when I woke up. My head was hurting, but it wasn't the only thing that was hurting. My left arm was stinging. I tried to move it, but something was holding it still. When I was able to get my bearings, I noticed the guy was right by me. It looked like he was kissing my wrist. It was then that I realized that he had cut me and was drinking some blood from me. I tried to pull my arm away, but the guy was too strong and I was too drunk and woozy. I passed out again. The second time I woke up, he was gone. A cloth was tied around my wrist, I suppose to stop the bleeding. There were 3 cans of beer sitting by me. The man who had a taste of my blood, however, was gone. Hell, I drank another beer because I was so wigged out by what had happened. I shouldn't have. When I was done, I took the 2 remaining beers and put them in my bag. Yes, I carried a backpack with me all the time. I took them, and I wobbled home. I was out past curfew, and I was stumbling. I was scared a police officer would pick me up, but I was happy he didn't. Again, there's no such thing as vampires. Some people like to pretend to be vampires, and I thought it was harmless. But some weirdo got me drunk, cut my wrist while I was knocked out, and drank my blood. And that's not harmless. I could have bled to death. So anyone who does this sort of thing is a fucking idiot. Number 2. Too far. I like Halloween, but I also think some people get much more into it than they probably should. Some people just play normal pranks that get a jump scare out of you, but others take it too far. I found this out the hard way. My friends wanted to go to the local haunted house. It was for charity, they told me. But they didn't tell me really what charity it was. I don't know if anyone tells me what charity for these things, now that I think about it. But I decided to go. I don't really get scared by these sort of things. You know that the people dressed up as monsters can't really touch or hurt you. So all you have to do is walk through the haunted house with a grin on your face, and you're fine. So we went. It was a large place, and they actually had several routes in it. The idea, though, was to go by yourself. I had never experienced that before, but it made sense. It might actually be scary if no one was with you. I went through a very interesting route. Everything was strobe lighted, too. People always think strobe lights make everything scary, and I will admit that my heartbeat definitely increased a bit. When I went into different rooms, I did my best to just smirk at the monsters, the actors, you know, and tell them they were doing a good job. In the 4th room, a zombie came up to me. He staggered like a zombie, of course, and I gave him the same look. It was a smirk because I knew that he couldn't touch me. He did get awfully close to me, though, and I was a bit nervous. But I knew he couldn't touch me, so it was fine. And then he grabbed me. And he grabbed me hard. And then he thrust me really hard against the wall. It was only then, when he said my name out loud, that I realized what was going on. There was this guy named Richard, who really didn't like me. He didn't really bully me, I guess, because he never tried to fight me, and just called me names every now and then. I mean, I guess that is bullying, but I never considered it so because I was not scared of him in any way. I wasn't scared of him right away now either, but that changed quickly when he pulled a pocket knife out of his pocket. He opened it and put it against my neck. "You can't do anything to me, Richard," I told him in a weak voice. He pushed the knife up against my neck more. "We're the only ones in here," he responded. "Who the fuck is gonna stop me? I'll definitely tell everyone what you do to me," I responded. His response chilled me. "You can't tell anyone anything if you're dead," he responded. Richard pulled the knife away from me. He reached back with the knife, and he plunged it forward right into my chest. I felt my breath catch for a moment, and I was scared that he stabbed me, and I was about to die. While I was catching my breath, though, he showed me the knife. He had quickly flipped the blade back into the knife before he thrust it at me, so the knife hadn't stabbed me. Richard whispered in my ear, "You don't have any marks on you," he told me. "Your word against mine." Richard then let me go. I immediately left the room and walked quickly through the rest of the house, ignoring everything until I got out. He was right. He had not cut me. I could tell his boss or the police what happened, but there were no other witnesses, so I didn't. What an ass. Number 3. The fear. I feel a need to warn you about this story. It is completely true, and it happened to me when I was in college. There is a sexual element to it, and if that offends you, you might not want to listen to this story. But it is true, and it is freaking scary. KOC told me that sometimes younger children listen to his stories because of the cats, but we both suggest you do not let them listen to this one. In college I had a bit of an ego, but I thought I deserved it and just wanted to have some fun while I was there. I made a lot of friends, including a girl who I will call Tammy, who had a job as a lab assistant. This is actually very important to the story. Well, I was also a big fan of horror. There was a horror club at the college, and I decided to go ahead and join it. I was not as dorky as all the other people in the club, but I did feel like I fit in with them. The problem for me that I seem to have lost my ability to be scared. I mean, scary movies don't really do anything for me anymore. I listened to YouTube horror channels, and they didn't do much for me either. I remember complaining to Tammy that I really wished that on Halloween something would happen that would truly frighten me. Unfortunately, I got my wish. Tammy told me that she would be able to scare me, and we made a bet on whether she could or not. I knew I was going to win for no better reason than I cannot be scared. I had to agree that since I wanted to be scared, I wouldn't hold anything against her for what she did. On Halloween, Tammy took me to the lab she worked in. We were having some beers, and I guess she wanted to show me what she was going to do to scare me. She showed me this device which KOC said he would put a picture on the screen. It's a device that is used to decapitate small animals. They used it to kill lab rats. I was a bit shocked, but not scared though. I asked her why she did that, and she told me that the decapitation was more humane. I honestly could not get my head around that one, but I really didn't know as much about what she was doing as she did. So I asked her if her big plan was to cut a rat's head off in order to scare me. She laughed and told me no. My brain got a little fuzzy as we talked. She then told me she needed to blindfold me. I agreed to this, and after she had me blindfolded, I was surprised that Tammy began to undress me. It was a real shock, but yeah, a sexy girl undressing you is not a bad thing. Plus, I had always thought she was pretty hot. Tammy got me totally naked, and then she led me across the room. She grabbed that certain part of me, and I, of course, got excited. But then two things happened. She guided my junk into something cold and metallic, and someone else grabbed me from behind, holding me in place. I panicked, but it was worse when she removed the blindfold, and I saw that my penis was in the decapitation guillotine. I think most guys out there would agree with me that having your junk be in that immediate and scary danger would sober you up pretty quickly. But what was more, I was being held by somebody much stronger than me. I couldn't get my penis out. There was Tammy. She had a smile on her face. She did not tell me a word. She simply walked over and put her hand on the lever of the small guillotine. And then she said, "And you think I couldn't scare you? Well, you're about to lose your dick." I didn't even have time to protest. Tammy quickly pulled the lever down on the guillotine, and I screamed for her not to. And yes, I was scared when she quickly and mercilessly cut it off. My heart was beating in and out of my chest, and I was panicked. Oh my god, I ruined my life and lost my dick simply because I wanted this girl to scare the crap out of me. But then I noticed there was no pain. Tammy began laughing her head off. Looking down, there was no damage. She had removed the bolts on the lever that pushed the blade down, so only the lever went down. She hadn't cut me off. The person holding me let me go. It was my dorm roommate, Todd, who was laughing his ass off. Now, I don't know how many of you would feel about this. I'm sure a lot of you might have been mad at her. She got my strong roommate to hold me in place and made me think she was cutting my junk off. Me, on the other hand, I wasn't mad at all. That girl scared the holy shit out of me. And I can tell you to this day, I will never, ever be that desperate to be scared again. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. I hope you like these Halloween stories. There will be more to come, I promise. Also, Dracula will be released on Halloween. I decided that everybody involved worked very hard and waited a long time for this to happen. Hell, Nordic Vampire recorded his lines 2 years ago. But finally, it's gonna happen on Halloween. And if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, feel free to click the subscribe button and the bell below, or click the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment, and share with someone you think might enjoy this. If you have an original story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. But most importantly, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.